All right, let me tell you about the time my brand new six-figure supercar met its match. And it wasn't another car on the racetrack. No, it was my neighborhood's very own HOA president. Let's call her Karen. This story is wild, so buckle up. It all started the day I brought my dream car home. A sleek, beautiful machine, the kind you see on posters. I'd worked my tail off for years, saved every penny, and finally, there it was, gleaming in my own driveway. I was on Cloud 9. The first thing I did was take it for a spin, feeling the engine purr. It was pure joy. I parked it carefully back in my driveway, admiring it one last time before heading inside. I figured, what could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, right? The very next morning, I get this frantic knock on my door. It's my neighbor, looking pale. He just points towards my driveway and says, "You need to see this." My heart sank. I rushed outside, and I couldn't believe my eyes. My beautiful, pristine supercar was, well, it was reneged, covered, and I mean absolutely slathered, in what looked like house paint. Thick, gloopy, white paint dripped all over the hood, the windshield, the carbon fiber body. It was a nightmare, and sitting right on the hood, tucked under a windshield wiper, was a neatly folded note. Primera picked it up, my hands shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. The note was from our HOA president, Karen. It was a smug, self-righteous lecture about how my flashy and ostentatious vehicle was not in keeping with the neighborhood's aesthetic standards. It went on to say she had taken corrective action to neutralize the disruptive color scheme. She had vandalized my property, my $300,000 property, and to top it all off, she had the audacity to include a fine for unapproved vehicle aesthetics. I was seeing red. I immediately called the police. When the officers arrived, they were just as stunned as I was. They looked at the car, then at the note, and then back at me. They documented everything, took pictures of the damage, and collected the note as evidence. While they were there, Karen herself strolled over, clipboard in hand, with a triumphant smirk on her face. She actually told the officers she was within her rights as the HOA president to enforce the community bylaw. The officers tried to explain that what she did wasn't enforcing a bylaw. It was felony vandalism. She just scoffed, saying the HOA rules superseded state law. You can imagine the look on the officers' faces. It was a masterclass in delusion. The police took their report and told me they'd be in touch. I then called my insurance company. The adjuster came out, took one look, and just whistled. The damage was extensive. We weren't just talking about a new paint job. The chemicals in the house paint had started to eat into the clear coat and even the carbon fiber panels. The estimate for repairs was astronomical, well into six figures. The insurance company agreed to cover it, but they made it very clear they would be going after the person responsible to recoup their costs, and that person was Karen. This is where things get interesting. I decided I wasn't just going to let insurance handle it. This was personal. I hired the best lawyer I could find. We filed a massive civil lawsuit against Karen personally, and also against the HOA itself for allowing her to have this kind of unchecked power. The HOA's lawyer immediately tried to distance the association from Karen's actions, claiming she acted as a rogue agent. But my lawyer was smart. We had evidence. We subpoenaed years of HOA emails and meeting minutes, and what we found was a pattern. Karen had a long history of overstepping her authority, fining people for absurd things, and making threats. The HOA board knew about it and did nothing. They were liable. During the deposition, Karen was something else. She sat there, completely unrepentant, arguing that she was the victim. She claimed my car was visual pollution and that she was a hero for protecting the neighborhood's property values. My lawyer just let her talk, and she dug her own grave deeper and deeper with every word. She admitted, on the record, to buying the paint and intentionally pouring it on my car. It was a slam dunk. The lawsuit dragged on, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The HOA's insurance carrier, seeing the mountain of evidence against them, decided to settle. And it was a big settlement. It covered the full value of my car, all my legal fees, and a hefty sum for punitive damages. But we weren't done with Karen. Her homeowner's insurance refused to cover her for an intentional criminal act, which this clearly was. So the judgment against her came out of her own pocket. The court ordered her to pay me a significant amount. To satisfy the judgment, she had to sell her house. The very house she was so obsessed with protecting the aesthetic of. The irony was just delicious. The day the for sale sign went up on our lawn was a day of quiet celebration for many in the neighborhood. We were finally free of her tyranny. But here's the part that changed everything. The story got picked up by local news, and then it went viral online. People were fascinated by the sheer audacity of this HOA Karen. My lawyer and I started getting calls from people all over the country who were trapped in similar situations with their own out-of-control HOAs. They felt powerless. Seeing my story gave them hope. That's when I realized this was bigger than just my car. I used the settlement money to start a legal aid fund and a consulting group specifically to help homeowners fight back against corrupt and abusive HOAs. We provide resources, connect people with lawyers who specialize in this area of law, and advocate for legislative reform to put checks and balances on HOA power. It's become my new passion. Losing my dream car was devastating at first, but it led me to a purpose I never expected. I turned one of the worst days of my life into a mission to help thousands of others. We've had so many victories since then, helping people save their homes and stand up for their rights. So, yeah, an HOA Karen destroyed my suit, but in doing so, she inadvertently created her own worst nightmare. An organized, well-funded movement dedicated to holding people like her accountable. And that, to me, is a better outcome than any car. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've had your own battles with an HOA, share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. See you next time.